Dog saves lost toddler in the woods. The family's reaction will break you. How will this heartwarming story unfold? To find out, watch the video to the end. But first, please subscribe to my channel and turn on notifications to get more stories like this. It was a crisp autumn morning in a quiet, wooded neighborhood. The air smelled of pine and fallen leaves, and the forest surrounding the houses was alive with the soft rustling of squirrels and chirping birds. The Thompson family had moved to this serene location to escape the chaos of the city. Their 2-year-old son, Liam, loved exploring the backyard, often laughing and chasing after falling leaves. But today, something felt different. Liam had wandered farther than usual, unnoticed by his parents, Sarah and David, who were busy unpacking boxes in their new home. His small footsteps carried him toward the woods, where towering trees stood like silent sentinels, guarding secrets that had remained untouched for decades. As Liam toddled deeper into the forest, a golden retriever named Max, who belonged to their neighbor, barked from behind the fence. Max was known for his gentle demeanor and strong bond with the Thompson family, especially Liam. He would often play fetch with the little boy, his tail wagging furiously as Liam giggled uncontrollably. Max's barks became frantic as he watched Liam disappear among the trees. Sensing something was wrong, he leapt over the fence, an unusual act for the otherwise well-behaved dog. With his sharp instincts kicking in, Max sniffed the ground, quickly picking up Liam's scent, and began following it. Meanwhile, Sarah called out for Liam from the kitchen. "Liam? Time for lunch." There was no answer. Her voice grew louder, more urgent. David joined her, searching the backyard, their panic escalating as they realized he wasn't there. "Maybe he's inside," Sarah said, though her voice wavered. They checked every room in the house but found nothing. Fear began to grip Sarah's heart as she looked out toward the woods. "David," she whispered, tears welling up. "He wouldn't have gone into the forest, right?" David grabbed his coat. "Let's not assume the worst. Let's check everywhere." The Thompson family's sense of dread deepened as the minutes ticked by. Sarah and David, now fully aware of Liam's disappearance, shouted his name, their voices echoing through the trees. The forest loomed ahead, its vastness both intimidating and mysterious. They couldn't shake the thought of how easily a small child could get lost in its depths. "Liam! Liam!" Sarah called, her voice cracking with worry. David held her hand tightly, attempting to offer reassurance. "We'll find him, Sarah. He couldn't have gone far." Unbeknownst to them, Max was already on the trail. The golden retriever weaved through the forest with remarkable precision, his nose to the ground, occasionally stopping to sniff the air. Max was more than just a loyal companion, he was a protector, and his instincts told him that Liam needed help. The forest was alive with activity. Birds flitted from branch to branch, squirrels darted up tree trunks, and the distant sound of a creek added a serene backdrop to the otherwise tense scene. But Max wasn't distracted. His focus was unwavering, his tail low as he moved deeper into the woods. Liam, meanwhile, sat on a patch of moss, his tiny hands clutching a stick. He had wandered farther than he intended, drawn by the bright colors of mushrooms and the sound of trickling water. At first, it was an adventure, but as the shadows grew longer and the forest became denser, he began to feel scared. "Mommy," he called out, his voice barely a whisper. Tears welled up in his big brown eyes as he realized he was lost. The world around him felt enormous and unfamiliar, the towering trees blocking out much of the sunlight. He clutched the stick tighter, as if it could offer him some kind of protection. Back at the house, Sarah and David decided to call the local search and rescue team. The operator assured them that help was on the way, but the wait felt unbearable. Neighbors gathered in the Thompsons' backyard, offering their support. Flashlights, whistles, and first aid kits were handed out as everyone prepared to comb through the forest. "Max is gone too," Sarah noticed, a flicker of hope lighting up her face. "Maybe he's with Liam. He's such a smart dog. He might be helping him." David nodded. "If anyone can find Liam, it's Max. But we're not going to sit and wait. Let's start searching now." The couple, along with their neighbors, entered the forest, their flashlights cutting through the growing dusk. The trees seemed to close in around them, their gnarled branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. Every rustle of leaves or snap of a twig made Sarah jump, her heart pounding in her chest. Meanwhile, Max's journey brought him closer to Liam. The dog stopped suddenly, his ears perking up. A faint sound, a sniffle, caught his attention. He barked loudly, hoping to alert Liam of his presence. Liam heard the bark and froze. For a moment, fear gripped him. But then recognition dawned on his face. "Max," he called out, his voice trembling but hopeful. "Max." The golden retriever burst through the underbrush, his golden fur shining even in the dim light. He bounded toward Liam, his tail wagging furiously. Liam threw his tiny arms around Max's neck, sobbing into his soft fur. "Max, I'm scared," he cried. Max licked Liam's face, his way of offering comfort. The dog's body language was clear. "I'm here. You're not alone." But Max knew their ordeal wasn't over. He needed to lead Liam back to safety, and the forest was growing darker by the minute. The golden retriever nudged Liam gently, encouraging him to stand. Liam, trusting his furry friend, clung to Max's collar as they began making their way back. The Thompson family's sense of dread deepened as the minutes ticked by. Sarah and David, now fully aware of Liam's disappearance, shouted his name, their voices echoing through the trees. The forest loomed ahead, its vastness both intimidating and mysterious. They couldn't shake the thought of how easily a small child could get lost in its depths. "Liam! Liam!" Sarah called, her voice cracking with worry. David held her hand tightly, attempting to offer reassurance. "We'll find him, Sarah. He couldn't have gone far." Unbeknownst to them, Max was already on the trail. The golden retriever weaved through the forest with remarkable precision, his nose to the ground, occasionally stopping to sniff the air. Max was more than just a loyal companion, he was a protector, and his instincts told him that Liam needed help. The forest was alive with activity. Birds flitted from branch to branch, squirrels darted up tree trunks, and the distant sound of a creek added a serene backdrop to the otherwise tense scene. But Max wasn't distracted. His focus was unwavering, his tail low as he moved deeper into the woods. Liam, meanwhile, sat on a patch of moss, his tiny hands clutching a stick. He had wandered farther than he intended, drawn by the bright colors of mushrooms and the sound of trickling water. At first, it was an adventure, but as the shadows grew longer and the forest became denser, he began to feel scared. "Mommy," he called out, his voice barely a whisper. Tears welled up in his big brown eyes as he realized he was lost. The world around him felt enormous and unfamiliar, the towering trees blocking out much of the sunlight. He clutched the stick tighter, as if it could offer him some kind of protection. Back at the house, Sarah and David decided to call the local search and rescue team. The operator assured them that help was on the way, but the wait felt unbearable. Neighbors gathered in the Thompsons' backyard, offering their support. Flashlights, whistles, and first aid kits were handed out as everyone prepared to comb through the forest. "Max is gone too," Sarah noticed, a flicker of hope lighting up her face. "Maybe he's with Liam. He's such a smart dog. He might be helping him." David nodded. "If anyone can find Liam, it's Max. But we're not going to sit and wait. Let's start searching now." The couple, along with their neighbors, entered the forest, their flashlights cutting through the growing dusk. The trees seemed to close in around them, their gnarled branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. Every rustle of leaves or snap of a twig made Sarah jump, her heart pounding in her chest. Meanwhile, Max's journey brought him closer to Liam. The dog stopped suddenly, his ears perking up. A faint sound, a sniffle, caught his attention. He barked loudly, hoping to alert Liam of his presence. Liam heard the bark and froze. For a moment, fear gripped him. But then recognition dawned on his face. "Max," he called out, his voice trembling but hopeful. "Max." The golden retriever burst through the underbrush, his golden fur shining even in the dim light. He bounded toward Liam, his tail wagging furiously. Liam threw his tiny arms around Max's neck, sobbing into his soft fur. "Max, I'm scared," he cried. Max licked Liam's face, his way of offering comfort. The dog's body language was clear. "I'm here. You're not alone." But Max knew their ordeal wasn't over. He needed to lead Liam back to safety, and the forest was growing darker by the minute. The golden retriever nudged Liam gently, encouraging him to stand. Liam, trusting his furry friend, clung to Max's collar as they began making their way back. Max and Liam's journey through the dense forest was anything but easy. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the temperature began to drop. A cold breeze whispered through the trees, carrying with it the eerie calls of distant animals. Liam's small body shivered, and Max could feel the child's trembling hands clutching his fur. The dog knew they had to keep moving, but the path ahead was treacherous. "Max, where are we going?" Liam asked, his voice barely audible. His cheeks were streaked with dried tears, and his tiny legs stumbled over roots and rocks. Max barked softly, a reassuring sound that seemed to say, "Trust me." The golden retriever led Liam with steady determination, his sharp senses guiding them through the maze of trees and underbrush. Max's nose twitched as he sniffed the air, constantly searching for familiar scents that might lead them back to the safety of home. The forest, however, had other plans. A fallen tree blocked their path, its massive trunk coated in moss and fungi. Liam stopped, staring at the obstacle with wide eyes. "I can't climb that, Max," he whimpered, tears threatening to fall again. Max assessed the situation. The dog circled the fallen tree, sniffing for a way around. He found a narrow gap beneath the trunk, just large enough for Liam to crawl through. Max barked again, nudging the boy toward the opening. Liam hesitated but trusted Max's instincts. "Okay, Max," he said, dropping to his hands and knees. He crawled through the damp earth, his small hands brushing against cold, wet moss. On the other side, Max was waiting, his tail wagging in encouragement. The two pressed on, but the forest seemed to grow darker and more foreboding with each passing minute. Shadows danced across the ground, and the sounds of rustling leaves and distant howls sent shivers down Liam's spine. He clung to Max like a lifeline, his faith in the dog unwavering. Back at the edge of the forest, Sarah and David were growing increasingly desperate. The search party, armed with flashlights and whistles, called out Liam's name into the night. The rescue team had arrived and set up a base camp, coordinating the search with maps and radios. But so far, there was no sign of the boy or Max. "Liam! Max!" Sarah's voice cracked as she shouted, her flashlight trembling in her hand. David placed a comforting hand on her shoulder, though his own face was etched with worry. "He's strong, Sarah," David said, trying to sound confident. "And Max is with him. That dog is practically a guardian angel." Sarah nodded, though her heart felt like it was breaking. "Please let them be okay," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. Deeper in the forest, Max and Liam encountered their next challenge, a shallow creek. The water glistened under the faint moonlight, its surface reflecting the towering trees. To Liam, it looked like an insurmountable barrier. The boy stopped at the water's edge, his tiny feet sinking into the muddy bank. "Max, I can't do it," Liam said, his voice trembling with fear. The cold water seemed intimidating, and he didn't want to step into its icy depths. Max, however, had other ideas. The dog waded into the creek without hesitation, the water soaking his golden fur. He turned back to Liam, barking softly as if to say, "Follow me. I'll keep you safe." Liam hesitated for a moment, then took a deep breath and stepped into the creek. The cold water sent a shock through his small body, but he held onto Max's collar for support. Together, they crossed the creek, their bond stronger than ever. On the other side, Max shook the water from his fur, droplets scattering in all directions. Liam giggled despite himself, the sound a brief reprieve from the tension of their journey. "You're silly, Max," he said, his voice tinged with affection. The dog wagged his tail, glad to see the boy smiling again. But Max knew they couldn't rest for long. The forest was vast, and the way home was still uncertain. As they continued, the terrain grew steeper, the ground littered with loose rocks and fallen leaves. Liam stumbled more than once, his small legs struggling to keep up. Each time Max stopped, his warm eyes filled with patience and encouragement. The dog would nudge Liam back to his feet, refusing to let him give up. Meanwhile, the search party had split into smaller groups, each combing a different section of the forest. Sarah and David were accompanied by a rescue worker named Karen, who had years of experience in finding lost children. "Dogs are incredible in situations like this," Karen said, trying to reassure the frantic parents. "If Max is with Liam, there's a good chance he's keeping him calm and leading him towards safety." "I just wish we knew where to look," Sarah said, her voice breaking. "This forest feels endless." Karen nodded, her flashlight scanning the ground for any signs of footprints or disturbed foliage. "We'll find them," she said firmly. "We have to." Back in the forest, Max suddenly stopped, his ears perking up. The dog had caught a familiar scent, human scent. He barked loudly, the sound echoing through the trees. "Max, what's wrong?" Liam asked, clinging to the dog's fur. Max barked again, louder this time. He sniffed the air, his body tense with alertness. The golden retriever turned to Liam and nudged him gently, urging him to keep moving. Liam trusted Max completely. "Okay, Max. Let's go," he said, his small voice filled with determination. The two pushed forward, their journey guided by Max's unerring instincts. The dog's sharp senses led them closer to the edge of the forest, where the search party was tirelessly looking for them. Finally, Max barked again, the sound cutting through the stillness of the night. This time, it was answered by a distant voice. "Did you hear that?" Sarah gasped, her heart leaping in her chest. She gripped David's arm, flashlight shaking. That was Max. Karen nodded, her face lighting up with hope. "This way," she said, leading the group toward the sound. As the rescue team closed in, Max barked repeatedly, his tail wagging furiously. Liam clung to the dog, his tired face lighting up with relief. "Mommy! Daddy!" he called out, his voice breaking with emotion. Moments later, Sarah and David burst through the underbrush, their flashlights illuminating the sight of their son, and Max's tears streamed down Sarah's face as she ran to Liam, scooping him into her arms. "Oh, Liam," she sobbed, holding him tightly. "You're safe. You're safe." David knelt beside them, his arms wrapping around both his wife and son. "Thank you, Max," he said, his voice choked with gratitude. The golden retriever wagged his tail, his eyes shining with pride. Karen and the rescue team looked on, their hearts warmed by the reunion. "That's one incredible dog," Karen said, smiling. As the Thompsons carried Liam back home, Max walked beside them, his job as protector fulfilled. The forest, once dark and foreboding, now seemed alive with hope. And though Liam's adventure had been frightening, it had also shown the power of love, trust, and the unbreakable bond between a boy and his dog. The journey back to the edge of the forest was one filled with emotion. Sarah carried Liam in her arms, unable to let him go even for a moment. Tears of relief streamed down her face as she whispered words of comfort to her son. Max trotted alongside them, his golden fur still damp from their trek across the creek, but his tail wagged with pride. He had done his job, and the little family was whole again. David walked beside them, his flashlight casting long shadows on the forest floor. He occasionally glanced at Max, his heart swelling with gratitude. "You saved him, Max," he said softly, his voice breaking. The golden retriever looked up at David, his expressive eyes reflecting the same love and loyalty that had driven him to protect Liam. The rescue team followed closely, their radios crackling with updates as they relayed the good news back to the base camp. Karen, the experienced rescue worker, couldn't help but smile as she watched the Thompsons reunite. "This is why we do what we do," she said to one of her colleagues. "That dog deserves a medal." When they finally emerged from the forest, the search party waiting at the base camp erupted into cheers. Flashlights illuminated the small clearing, and people rushed forward to meet the family. The sight of Liam's tear-streaked face and Max's wagging tail brought tears to the eyes of even the most stoic rescuers. Sarah and David were overwhelmed by the outpouring of support. Neighbors, friends, and even strangers gathered around them, offering hugs and words of encouragement. Liam clung tightly to his mother, his small hands gripping her jacket as if afraid to let go. But his eyes were on Max, his constant companion and hero. "Max, you're the best dog in the whole world," Liam said, his voice filled with wonder. He reached out to pet the golden retriever, who licked his hand in response. The Thompsons' neighbor, Mrs. Harris, stepped forward with a blanket and a thermos of hot cocoa. "Here, Sarah," she said, wrapping the blanket around Liam. "This will keep him warm." "Thank you," Sarah replied, her voice thick with emotion. She held Liam closer, her heart still racing from the ordeal. "I don't know what we would have done without Mac." The rescue team quickly checked Liam for any injuries. Apart from a few scrapes and bruises, he was unharmed. Karen smiled as she examined him, her experienced hands gentle and reassuring. "He's a tough little guy," she said, ruffling Liam's hair. "And that dog of yours is a real hero." David knelt down beside Max, his hand resting on the dog's head. "You're a lifesaver, buddy," he said, his voice full of gratitude. "We're so lucky to have you." Max wagged his tail, his eyes sparkling with happiness. He didn't need words to understand the love and appreciation pouring from his family. For him, protecting Liam had been instinctual, an act of pure loyalty and devotion. As the evening wore on, the Thompsons returned home, escorted by a convoy of rescue workers and neighbors. Their house, once filled with worry and dread, now seemed like a sanctuary. Sarah set Liam down on the couch, tucking the blanket around him. Max curled up at his feet, his body a warm and comforting presence. "You must be starving," Sarah said, brushing Liam's hair back from his forehead. "What would you like to eat, sweetheart?" "Mac and cheese," Liam said with a tired but hopeful smile. "Coming right up," Sarah said, her heart lifting at the sound of his voice. She glanced at Max and added, "And a big bowl of your favorite kibble for you, Mac." As Sarah prepared dinner, David sat beside Liam, holding his small hand in his own. "You were so brave out there, buddy," he said. "We're so proud of you." "I wasn't brave," Liam said softly. "Max was. He kept me safe the whole time." David smiled, his eyes welling with tears. "You're both heroes in my book." When dinner was ready, the family sat together in the living room, the warmth of their home wrapping around them like a comforting embrace. Liam ate his mac and cheese with gusto, while Max devoured his meal with equal enthusiasm. The golden retriever's tail thumped against the floor, a steady rhythm of contentment. Later that night, as Liam drifted off to sleep, Sarah and David sat together on the couch, their hands intertwined. Max lay at their feet, his head resting on his paws. The house was quiet, but the silence was filled with a sense of peace and gratitude. "We're so lucky, David," Sarah said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't even want to think about what could have happened if Max hadn't been there." David nodded, his grip on her hand tightening. "He's more than a dog," he said. "He's family." The next morning, the Thompsons woke up to find a crowd gathered outside their home. News of Max's heroics had spread throughout the neighborhood, and people had come to show their appreciation. Children held handmade signs that read, "Max the hero, thank you, Max," while neighbors brought treats and toys for the golden retriever. Max seemed overwhelmed by the attention, but his tail wagged furiously as he greeted each visitor. Liam beamed with pride as he introduced his dog to everyone. "This is Max," he said. "He saved me." The local news station arrived to cover the story, and soon Max's bravery was being celebrated far and wide. The reporter interviewed Sarah, David, and Liam, who all spoke about the incredible bond between their family and their beloved dog. "He's more than just a pet," Sarah said, her eyes shining with emotion. "Max is our protector, our hero. We owe him everything." Max didn't understand the cameras or the reporters, but he could feel the love and admiration radiating from the crowd. For him, the only thing that mattered was his family. They were his world, and he would do anything to keep them safe. As the weeks passed, life slowly returned to normal for the Thompsons. But Max's heroics left a lasting impact on their community. People began to see the golden retriever as a symbol of loyalty and courage, and his story inspired others to cherish the bond they shared with their own pets. For Max, nothing changed. He still greeted Liam with wagging tail every morning, followed Sarah around the house, and curled up at David's feet while he read. But there was a new light in his eyes, a quiet pride that came from knowing he had made a difference. And for Liam, Max wasn't just a dog. He was a guardian, a friend, and a hero. The little boy knew that no matter what challenges life threw at them, Max would always be there, standing by his side. The days following Max's heroic rescue were nothing short of extraordinary for the Thompson family and their golden retriever. The story of Max's unwavering bravery spread beyond their quiet suburban neighborhood, making its way onto social media and even catching the attention of national news outlets. On a crisp Saturday morning, a crowd gathered at the local park for a special celebration in Max's honor. The park, once a place for weekend picnics and children's laughter, now buzzed with excitement and admiration for the golden retriever who had saved a life. Balloons floated above the crowd, and a makeshift stage had been set up with a banner that read, "Celebrating Max, our community hero." Sarah, David, and Liam arrived at the park to a round of applause. Max, wearing a bright blue bandana with the words, "Hero Dog," embroidered on it, walked proudly beside Liam. His ears perked up at the sound of the crowd, but he stayed close to his family, his tail wagging as if he could sense the outpouring of love. "Max is a celebrity," Liam whispered to his mom, clutching her hand as they made their way to the stage. Sarah smiled, her heart swelling with pride. "He's always been a star to us," she said, giving Max a pat on the head. The mayor of the town, a kind-faced man named Mr. Hargrove, stepped forward to address the crowd. Dressed in a sharp suit, he held a plaque in his hands. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice amplified by the microphone, "today we gather to honor a true hero, one who reminds us of the extraordinary bond between humans and animals. Max's bravery not only saved young Liam's life, but also brought our community together in a way that we will never forget. The crowd erupted into cheers, and Liam clapped enthusiastically, looking up at Max with adoration. The golden retriever sat calmly beside him, his eyes scanning the crowd with curiosity. Max, Mr. Hargrove continued, we may not speak your language, but your actions have spoken volumes. You are a symbol of loyalty, courage, and unconditional love. He held up the plaque, which gleamed in the sunlight. On behalf of our community, I'm proud to present you with this token of our gratitude. Sarah leaned down to whisper in Max's ear. That's for you, buddy. You earned it. The mayor handed the plaque to Liam, who accepted it on Max's behalf. The little boy held it up for everyone to see, his face glowing with pride. Thank you, Max, Liam said into the microphone, his voice clear and heartfelt. You're the best dog in the whole wide world. The audience erupted into applause once more, and several people wiped tears from their eyes. The sight of Liam and Max on stage, their bond so evident and unbreakable, was enough to move even the toughest of hearts. After the ceremony, the park transformed into a festive celebration. Booths were set up offering refreshments, and local businesses donated treats and toys for pets. A dog agility course had been set up, and Max became the star attraction as he navigated the obstacles with ease. Children and adults alike gathered to watch him leap through hoops and weave between poles, cheering him on every step of the way. Liam ran alongside Max, encouraging him with shouts of "Good boy, and you can do it." The golden retriever seemed to thrive on the attention, his tail wagging furiously as he completed the course. At the finish line, Liam threw his arms around Max's neck, burying his face in his fur. You're amazing, Max, he said, his voice muffled but full of love. David and Sarah watched from the sidelines, their hearts brimming with gratitude. I still can't believe how much he's brought us together, David said, slipping an arm around Sarah's shoulders. He's not just our hero, he's everyone's hero. Sarah nodded, her eyes shining with emotion. He's taught us what it means to be brave, she said, and to love without limits. As the day turned into evening, the celebration showed no signs of slowing down. The local news station set up a booth to interview attendees, and several people shared stories about how Max's bravery had inspired them. A young girl named Emily, who had been afraid of dogs after a past encounter, approached Max cautiously. With Sarah's encouragement, she reached out to pet him, and Max responded by gently licking her hand. He's so friendly, Emily said, her fear melting away as she stroked his fur. I think I want a dog just like Max someday. Her father smiled, ruffling her hair. You made a new friend today, haven't you? He said, glancing at Max with gratitude. Thank you, buddy. Later that night, as the crowd began to thin, Sarah, David, and Liam took a moment to sit under a large oak tree with Max. The golden retriever stretched out beside them, his head resting on Liam's lap. The plaque they had received earlier sat beside them, a tangible reminder of the day's events. I think this is the best day ever, Liam said, running his fingers through Max's fur. Don't you think so, Max? Max let out a soft woof, as if to say he agreed. His eyes closed in contentment, and his tail gave a gentle wag. It's definitely a day to remember, David said, leaning back against the tree. He reached out to place a hand on Max's back, feeling the steady rise and fall of his breathing. Thank you, Max, for everything. The family sat in comfortable silence, the weight of the past week lifting from their shoulders. The bond between them, strengthened by Max's heroism, felt unbreakable. As they prepared to head home, Sarah looked at David and said, We should do something special for Max, something to show him just how much he means to us. David nodded. I've got an idea, he said with a smile. Let's make it a surprise. With that, the Thompsons and Max made their way back home, the events of the day etched into their hearts forever. Max may have started the day as a hero, but by the end of it, he had become a legend, a symbol of love, courage, and the unbreakable bond between a dog and his family. The Thompson family couldn't let Max's heroism go unnoticed without giving him a proper reward. Over the days following the park celebration, Sarah and David brainstormed ways to show their beloved dog just how much he meant to them. Liam, of course, had plenty of enthusiastic ideas of his own. What if we build Max a castle in the backyard? Liam suggested one morning, his face lit up with excitement. Like a real one, with towers and everything. David chuckled as he ruffled Liam's hair. That's a great idea, buddy, but I think Max might prefer something he can actually use. Sarah, sipping her coffee, chimed in. What about creating a special space for him? Something that's just his, where he can relax and feel loved. David nodded thoughtfully. That's a great idea. We could build him the ultimate doghouse. Something comfortable and big enough for Liam to play with him inside. Liam's eyes widened. Yes, and we can put his name on it so everyone knows it's Max's house. The plan was set, and the Thompsons wasted no time putting it into motion. David sketched out a blueprint for the doghouse, complete with a cozy interior, soft bedding, and even a small porch. Sarah suggested adding a spot for Max's water and food bowls, while Liam insisted on a toy box for Max's favorite balls and chew toys. The following weekend, the family headed to the local hardware store to gather supplies. Liam bounced with excitement as they loaded wood, nails, and paint into their cart. Max is going to love this, he said, holding onto a can of blue paint. Blue is his favorite color, right? Sarah smiled. I think Max will love anything we make for him, especially if you help. Back at home, the backyard became a bustling construction zone. David measured and cut the wood with precision, while Sarah and Liam painted the panels a cheerful blue. Max watched curiously from his spot under a shady tree, his tail wagging as he observed the activity. Do you think he knows it's for him? Liam asked, wiping a smear of blue paint from his cheek. Sarah glanced at Max, who was now lying on his side, basking in the afternoon sun. I think he has an idea, she said with a smile. But he's going to be so surprised when it's all done. Over the next few days, the doghouse began to take shape. Liam added personal touches, like painting Max's name above the entrance and drawing paw prints along the sides. Sarah lined the interior with soft cushions, and David installed a small solar-powered light so Max could enjoy his house even at night. Finally, the day came to unveil the finished doghouse. The family decided to make it a small celebration, inviting a few neighbors and their dogs to join in the fun. Balloons decorated the backyard, and a table was set up with refreshments for both humans and pets. Okay, Liam, David said, placing a hand on his son's shoulder. Go get Mac. Liam raced to the living room, where Max was napping on his favorite rug. Come on, Max, he said, tugging gently at the golden retriever's collar. We have a surprise for you. Max stretched lazily before following Liam outside, his tail wagging in anticipation. When they reached the backyard, the crowd erupted into cheers, and Max froze in his tracks, his eyes widening as he took in the sight before him. There it is, Max, Liam exclaimed, pointing to the doghouse. Your very own house. Max trotted over to the doghouse, sniffing it curiously. He peeked inside, his tail wagging furiously as he explored the cozy interior. Liam crawled in after him, giggling as Max licked his face. Do you like it, Max? Sarah asked, kneeling beside the doghouse. Max responded with a happy bark, wagging his tail so hard that it thumped against the wooden frame. The crowd laughed, and several neighbors stepped forward to admire the doghouse. This is amazing, said Mrs. Jenkins, the elderly woman who lived next door. Her small terrier, Daisy, sniffed at the doghouse before giving an approving bark. Max deserves it after everything he's done. David beamed with pride. He's more than a dog to us, he said. He's family. As the celebration continued, Max seemed to revel in the attention. He played fetch with the neighborhood children, posed for photos with the adults, and even shared a moment with Daisy, who seemed smitten with him. Later that evening, after everyone had gone home, the Thompson family sat together in the backyard, watching the sunset. Max lay contentedly in front of his new doghouse, his head resting on Liam's lap. This was a good idea, Sarah said, leaning against David. Max deserves all the love in the world. David nodded. He's given us so much. It feels good to give something back. Liam hugged Max tightly. You're the best dog ever, he whispered. I love you, Mac. Max let out a soft woof, as if to say he loved Liam too. The golden retriever had always been a part of their family, but now more than ever, they felt like they truly understood the depth of his loyalty and love. Months passed since the fateful day Max saved Liam, but the warmth and gratitude the Thompson family felt for their golden retriever never waned. The mantelpiece in their living room now featured Max's Hero's Heart Award alongside framed pictures of Liam and Max together. Visitors often stopped to admire the display, asking about the story behind the award. Sarah, David, and Liam never tired of retelling the tale of Max's bravery, each recounting their memories with tears and smiles. Max had become something of a local celebrity. On walks through the neighborhood, strangers would approach, recognizing him from the newspaper and local news stories. Children would crouch to pet him, their parents smiling as they said, "This is the famous Max." Max, ever friendly and calm, soaked up the attention, wagging his tail and offering gentle licks to anyone who came near. Liam, who had once been shy and reserved, seemed to blossom in the wake of the rescue. His bond with Max gave him confidence, and the two became inseparable. Whether playing in the yard, reading stories on the couch, or exploring the local park, they were a team, each finding comfort and joy in the other's presence. One weekend, as the family prepared for a picnic in the woods, a place that had once been fraught with fear but now held new memories of strength and resilience, Sarah sat down to write in her journal. It had become a habit for her to reflect on the blessings Max had brought into their lives. Her pen moved steadily across the page as she wrote. "Max has taught us so much about love, loyalty, and courage. He didn't hesitate to protect Liam when it mattered most, and in doing so, he reminded us of the extraordinary bond between humans and animals. Every time I see Liam laughing with Max or watch them running through the yard together, I'm reminded of how precious life is and how much we owe to our furry hero." Max didn't just save Liam that day. He brought our family closer together and inspired an entire community. As Sarah closed the journal, her eyes fell on Max, who was napping on the rug with Liam snuggled against his side. The sight filled her with a deep sense of peace and gratitude. The picnic that day was perfect. The weather was mild, with a soft breeze rustling the leaves. The family spread a blanket near a clearing, unpacking sandwiches, fruit, and treats for Max. Liam ran around with Max, laughing as the dog chased after a stick he'd thrown. Even as Max aged, his energy and playful spirit remained undiminished. At one point, as David helped Sarah set up the food, Liam wandered to the edge of the clearing. He paused, staring at the path that led deeper into the woods. Max followed him, standing protectively by his side. Liam looked up at Max, patting his golden fur. "You saved me here, didn't you, Max?" Liam whispered. Max tilted his head as if he understood, leaning into Liam's touch. The two stood there for a moment, the boy and his dog, gazing into the forest that had once held such danger but was now a symbol of their unbreakable bond. When they returned to the picnic blanket, Liam shared his thoughts with his parents. "Max is my best friend," he said simply. "I love him so much." Sarah's eyes welled with tears as she hugged Liam. "We all love Max, sweetheart. He's the best friend anyone could ever ask for." David nodded, scratching behind Max's ears. "You've changed our lives, buddy," he said softly. "We're so lucky to have you." As the seasons changed, Max continued to bring joy and love to the Thompson family. But like all beloved pets, his time with them was finite. Years later, as Max grew older, his movement slowed, and gray began to sprinkle his golden coat. Yet his spirit remained as gentle and loyal as ever. On a quiet morning, Sarah found Max lying in his favorite spot by the window, the sunlight warming his fur. He looked up at her with calm, wise eyes, and she knew. She knelt beside him, stroking his head as tears filled her eyes. "Thank you, Max," she whispered, "for everything." David and Liam joined her, each taking a moment to say their goodbyes. Liam, now a teenager, held Max close, his voice trembling as he said, "You'll always be my hero, Mac." Max passed peacefully that day, surrounded by the family he had devoted his life to protecting and loving. The Thompsons buried him in the backyard beneath a sturdy oak tree, placing a small stone marker engraved with his name and the words, "Max, our hero, our heart." In the weeks that followed, the family honored Max's memory by continuing to share his story. They worked with the local animal shelter to organize an annual adoption event called Max's Day, encouraging others to open their hearts and homes to animals in need. The event became a beloved tradition in the community, drawing families from near and far to celebrate the unconditional love that pets bring into our lives. Liam, inspired by Max's legacy, began volunteering at the shelter, walking dogs and helping with adoptions. He often spoke about Max to prospective pet owners, sharing how his golden retriever had not only saved his life but also taught him the true meaning of loyalty and love. Years later, as Liam grew into adulthood, he carried Max's lessons with him. He pursued a career as a veterinarian, dedicating his life to caring for animals and advocating for their welfare. On the wall of his clinic hung a photo of Max with the Hero's Heart Award, a constant reminder of the dog who had shaped his path. Max's story, though it began with a single act of bravery, became a legacy of love that touched countless lives. The Thompsons, forever grateful for the gift of Max's presence, found solace in knowing that his memory would live on through their actions and the lives of those he inspired. And so, as the oak tree in the Thompsons' backyard grew taller, its branches stretching toward the sky, it stood as a symbol of Max's enduring legacy, a testament to the boundless love of a loyal dog and the family he cherished.